Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We're back again with our Stranger Danger program, and this time it's a big fix edition. Now, I am sure a lot of you might be aware about big fix, but some of you who are not aware about the big fix, let me tell you about it again. And I'm going to just share my screen here and show you what it is and how we are trying to do it. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And let me know when you're able to see my screen. Hmm. Okay. Let me add it here. Here you go. So, what is Big Fix? Big Fix is a month-long event that we started on the Valentine's Day, 14th February. That's what we cannot forget. And it is going to run till March 14th. So, it's a 1 month period. And for the 1 month, what we are trying to do is we are fixing these bugs. Now, how you can fix these bugs? You can register yourself here, and when you register yourself, it asks for your first name, last name, and email address, and that's it. That's it. For making sure that we're not misusing it, we would not be sending you any spams or anything. We would not be giving it to anyone. We would not be using it. It's purely for the hackathon purpose, fixathon purpose. So when you click on registration, it'll take you to this page. If you're already registered, it would not let you do, and like it would not ask you this. But if you're not, then first name, last name, and email address, and that's about it. And also, once you are registered, you would get a magic link on your email address, and once you click on that, it'll take you to the page where you can just play around with it. If you can see on the screen, this is where we can see a lot of people. Let me do one thing. Big fix leaderboard. Let me go here. So the leaderboard, if you see, we had a goal of 200,000. We've already surpassed that number. There are certain critical, high, medium, and low vulnerabilities which have been fixed, and these are the top people who fix these bugs. You can also come on the top. We still have a few more days to go, so you can start fixing these issues, and you can join our big fix event. Now, what are the perks for it? So let me tell you what are the big perks for it. So for anyone and everyone who actually fixes the bug will receive a beautiful t-shirt from us, a limited edition t-shirt. And at the same time, the first three people would receive amazing gifts, from VR headset to a beautiful drive to whatnot. We would be sending you those details. I'll be sending those details with you shortly. Now, while we discuss. But now, keep posting your questions about the discussions here. We want to know more about it. And we want you to be more engaged in these big fix discussion. And we actually are having these stranger danger programs every week around Java or JavaScript. And we want you to be more involved in these fixathons. And let me tell you what the agenda was. So we wanted more and more people to fix their bugs, the bugs in their own code, in the repositories or open source ecosystem that they support. And at the same time, there are so many repositories, so many open source projects which are lying out there because maintainers have issues, and at the same time they need support from the volunteers. So why not help them in fixing those issues, make some pull requests, and help those maintainers? And I am sure they would be very, very honored to be part of it, to make you part of those wonderful projects. If some project that means a lot to you, please start contributing. We as Sneak would love to see more and more bugs being fixed. We've already surpassed the numbers. We want you to register. If you've not registered, very simple, bigfix.sneak.io. Let me go ahead and send it to you on the chat box, so that after my session or during my session, you can just straight actually register yourself. And also, I will share the link for the leaderboard so that you can check out the leaderboard as well. All right, here is the leaderboard. Now, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to go to my presentation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start talking about what we are here for today. So here we are going to be talking about the JavaScript attack surface, which is getting bigger and better and bigger day by day. I'm not sure about better because you're going to tell me now, and that what are your experiences with it as well. Like, I love sharing a lot of stories, and I want to hear your story as well. And maybe someday we would be on the live stream. And if you're really incredible story and we love it, I'm sure that I would love to invite you on the live stream with me, and we will share it with the whole world. We should share these things where they can secure, and how actually are you using Sneak and BigFix. I would love to have a chat with you as well. So let's get through this. Okay. Oh, okay. So here, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about current state of open source security. We're going to be talking about Iceberg, and we would be doing a bit around live hacking. But let me tell you, this is not going to be hacking someone's servers. Nope, I'm not going to do that. I am not allowed to do it. This is not ethically possible. But what we're going to do is we have set up certain environments where, or certain grooves where we're going to experiment that. Those are vulnerable environments where I'm going to be trying. And while we experience all of that, hacking is fun. It's good. But the most fun part comes is when we remediate those issues. And when we remediate, there are some learnings that we get out of it. So we're going to be discussing about that. And here I have a very good friend of me with me, Patch, who actually is wonderful, who's going to help me out in patching these bugs. So stay tuned for it. Now, one more thing that I'm going to be doing is talking about current state of open source. So this is the current state right now. And why are we highlighting this part? Because any organization you pick, be it a startup, be it a medium-sized organization, or be it a small business organization, or SMB you call it as, or an enterprise, everyone is using open source. Let's say we have to agree on that. Why? Because 80 to 90% of the code on the internet is all open source. If you think otherwise, please post your questions. Or if you think that, yes, this is it, okay, let's post that as well. Now, why is it a challenging thing? Because when we have a great power, with it comes great responsibility. Because open source, when it's being used everywhere, it comes with its own implications. Um, there are many entry points which are there for organizations, for people, for attackers, where the data can be theft. Data theft can happen, or data can be exfiltrated. The disruption can happen, exploitation can happen. Now, when that can happen, which itself means that attack surface is getting increased, it is becoming bigger and bigger. Now, while it becomes bigger, we have so many small dependencies to big dependencies to dependencies which are heavily used. Now, for the vulnerabilities and heavily used dependencies, they get highlighted so soon. But the vulnerabilities and the dependencies which are not very well known, but we are using it, and there's a critical bug in that, and we didn't realize that that needs to be fixed. What can happen? Big issues can happen. Now let's talk about application security. Why is it important? So vulnerabilities can originate from something as simple as configuration error, and when we are using software components which are using known vulnerabilities. So, this is why maintaining and improving application security is so important for any business, be small, medium, or an enterprise. Now, there was one study which revealed that 85,000 apps, which were a part of that the whole research, uh, 83% contained at least one security flaw, and out of those, 20% of them has had a severe vulnerability. Now, while not all of these vulnerabilities necessarily present a major risk, but then hackers can continue to refine that small vulnerability can lead to a big issue, which we do not want. So organizations like Sneak, which came up with Sneak Top 10 for developers, or OWASP, which is Open Worldwide Application Security Project, which comes up with security issues every 3 to 4 years. So the recent one is in 2021. Now, let's talk about something around the open source attacks. So let's take a look at them and what they are. Here, the first one is typo squaring attack. Typo squaring attacks takes place when bad actors push malicious code to a registry with the hope of tricking users and installing them. I am a person who types really fast, like real fast. So the issues, what can happen is with that is that these typo squaring attacks become really interesting. Like when you start uh, putting in the efforts, you start installing it. Um, okay, let me tell you a story. I'm when I type fast, I type wrong. So instead of typing my own website, infosec Vandana, I reach out. I reach somewhere where somebody has replaced with N to A, or has added another A, because my name has so many A's in it. And I'm like, where did I land? Similarly, when you are on GitHub or you're using a code repository, instead of the right one, you add some other character here and there, and you download the code from that. It looks really legit. But what are you downloading? Maybe a malware, maybe a ransomware, maybe something else, which you don't even know. Now, why am I saying that? Let me show you why. So, it is another example of malicious package where we injected well, somebody injected malicious code into the software product, and what the agenda was to just compromising the that's a tongue twisting, dependent systems, which further down to give us more information. That's what we want. If I'm an attacker, I would want to get as much as information I can. So in this example, we're having a package called Fall Guys, and usually the malicious actors will try to serve what's actually interesting on the trend, or what people are trying to serve, what people are trying to figure out. So during the pandemic, people were trying to play around a game, and these malicious actors, what they did was they added a malicious package saying that, oh, if you install this package on your game, then what will happen is that you'll be able to bypass a certain level. And for me, I'm like, oh, okay, that's very interesting. I would like to use that. But uh, being a person from a security angle or a developer, I would like, no, I don't want to do that. That might be a very tricky thing. But for other people, there are many people who would be downloading these things. That's why we need to be very cautious of these things. Now, for anything and everything that I'm talking, I'm going to go ahead and share those information with you. So this is being picked up from Sneak Advisor. And the other one, I'm also going to be sharing all of the links with you, like all the links that we are talking here. Every link will be shared with you. Like, I'm not going to leave anything. Don't worry about it. Now, one last example. I say that, but then there are more examples and the stories that I have for you. So this example talks about compromising maintainers repo itself. Like, I build a repo with you trust me, and you start downloading anything and everything that I say. Can that happen? Maybe. Like, you see me on these streams every day, every week, and you're like, trust. I trust Vandana. So anything Vandana shares is like good. So let me start using it, and you start using it. Similarly, we had an instance with the event stream package because it's been used since 2011, and there are multiples of downloads, hundreds and thousands of downloads per week that happens. So this malicious actor, what this person did, he pushed some cosmetic changes at first to build up the repo with the maintainer. Now, once that was done, once the person got permissions, he pushed the malicious payload into the code base. Interestingly, that was for a crypto miner. Imagine you're using a code base with a crypto miner. All your resources are going there. You've got like thousands and thousands of dollar bills. So it was actually targeting a Bitcoin wallet. The modus operandi was very interesting in going through all the issues and the things that person has contributed. Another one, let's talk about it. One of my favorites one, where when we say somebody compromising your own ecosystem, here the maintainer itself was running caller and faker. So this happened last year, where the caller and faker libraries, they were very majorly used by the organization. So the person, what the maintainer did, in caller, the person added a loop condition. So infinite loop condition was added in the index.js ecosystem of the library, and everyone who downloaded it had a loop condition like this. And with another library, what the person did with Faker, the person removed the some of the files itself. So anyone who downloaded it, it was not working. And what was the message from the maintainer? That no more work, no more free work from the person. Now, who to blame for? Let's talk about that. Nobody can be blamed here. But what we need to do is we need to understand that these issues are real. When we start using these open source ecosystems, we need to make sure that we fix issues. We need to understand our own house, what we have, or what will happen. These issues will keep happening. These issues will keep coming up. Let me tell you one interesting aspect. uh, Log4j happened, and that became a fuzz. There was another issue happened that became a fuzz. Now all of these issues keep coming up. When they come up, we need to fix them. But why they came up so suddenly and why we started getting panicked? Because we did not maintain a list of repositories, or we maintained it, but we didn't do the right up to date thing. So we need to have proper software bill of materials. And if we want to go through a proper process in making sure that what we have, we know it. So we need to have those SBOMs. um, Another example could be, we have a lot of windows in our house, we have doors. Now while we go out, we miss to close one of the windows, because we thought, okay, that might not be an issue. But somebody comes in and start taking out data from your house. So we do not want that. Similarly, with the supply chain attacks, also called as third party attacks, it, it can happen to any organization and infiltrate the data. A lot of issues were talked about during SolarWinds attack. But then, was it only thing? So interesting bit is that no. Now coming back to this, let's say hi to our beautiful iceberg. Let's try and to understand how is this possible, these issues are possible, and what are the issues that we need to address. So let's say hi to iceberg, and uh, I'm sure I'm saying this again and again, and I'm sure you'll be confused. Okay, let's talk about it. This is the beautiful iceberg, which I totally love. We all love at Sneak. So what is it all about? So this iceberg, it is related to something which is about code. So our starting point here is the application code. This is the proprietary code that we write in the organization. I'm sure there are developers in most of the organizations, or somebody has outsourced it to the people. So let's bring the light on those proprietary codes. Does it bring security vulnerabilities in our code base? Absolutely. There are vulnerabilities which we try to fix. So in this example, we are having a NoSQL injection where we are not sanitizing the user input. So the function signature of an Express app with a function which has a response, response, and a callback here, and next callback. So it's trying to call the user table, which has a username and a password from the database. Now, what are the vulnerabilities here? What can go wrong? Where is the issue? So we start with our code where potentially we can have security issues. This is a piece of code where we are importing a dependency, which is nice segue to the layer below the app in the iceberg. Hmm. Okay. Very interesting. Now, we've talked about there is an issue, there's a code base, there's an open source code base, but what exactly is the problem? Do you remember in the beginning I said 80 to 90% of the code is open source? This is actually what it is. Where we've only this code which we are building, but rest of the code is all open source. And if we think we write ourselves is like very low, only to 10 to 20%. So why would we waste only concentrating on the code which is native? We need to look at open source as well. Now, why do I say that? We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We have so many beautiful ecosystems. We have beautiful code written by amazing people who are contributing to the open source. So we want to make sure that we take help from it. So when we take help from it, it becomes our responsibility to maintain it, to make a documentation that this is it, that this is what we're following. If any update comes, we have to update. We cannot blame someone else. So are we aware of all the packages that we have, all the dependencies and sub dependencies that we have in our environment? Do we have a good understanding of direct and indirect or maybe transitive dependencies that we have? Or do we have all the tools, the relevant tools that help us finding the level of understanding and visibility on all of these things. I have a lot of questions. I know that's a lot of questions to ask to ourselves. Absolutely. Why do I say that? Let me tell you. Why? So there are a number of security challenges in the open source. Average number of outstanding or critical vulnerabilities in an application ranges between 2.6 to 9.5 based on the programming language. And then on top of it, dependency per project keeps on increasing. Average number of days, around 100 days. If you fix one vulnerability in 100 days, oh, how bad that can go. As soon as the patch comes out or exploit comes out, people start attacking maybe in few hours. So you don't know. Similarly, if you commit any API key on the GitHub, attackers would find out even before you know. GitHub has a beautiful security, but then at the same time, people are out there who want to do all of this. So what we need to do, as Mika said, let's patch. Absolutely, let's patch. So now what are we going to do next? What are we going to learn here? I want to learn more about the different aspects. Let me do one thing. Let me actually start hacking. Enough chatting for now. I can go on and on for hours. So let's move on to hacking an app. Now, it's testing an app, checking out what it can do. So understand more about the dependencies and impact on our applications and introduce vulnerabilities that maybe we are aware about it, maybe we are not aware about it. Let me go ahead and put this app somewhere here. Okay. Okay, let me go ahead and move this to my window. All right. Alrighty. Here you go. So this is one of my favorite apps. I have a habit of to-do list. Like I keep forgetting things. And I'm sure a lot of us do. We are all living in this virtual world where we keep forgetting things, right? Tell me yes or no. Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay, so that can happen. Let's navigate to this app. So I have set up this local because I don't want to make my system vulnerable. So I've set it up in a proper environment so that I can show you where things can go wrong. Now you can also try these apps. I'm going to share the link for all these apps. You can run them. Now look at this URL. It's a local host, but it can be actual URL as well, like maybe infosec Vandana. And for me, what I do is I want to understand the app. And here in the to-do list, let's say I say hi. So there's a to-do list that's being created. Okay, demo, demo for Java.js. Okay, I created a to-do list. Now it's an input field where I can put in some inputs. So I've put in. Let's play around more with it. What information this can give? Let me try and see if I can access the public repo. Interestingly, I can see that. So if you look at this URL, what we can do is we can figure out things around it. Now, in public, I can see some repositories. So if we can do this, maybe we can traverse within these directories and see what information it gives, right? So while it's giving me these details, I want to try more. Like I am a person who wants to get to know more. Okay, but it didn't give me much information. It actually landed me to the home page. Let's try and do more around // and see what it gives me. Okay, slash public. Okay, slash // I just tried, it didn't happen. I tried again, didn't happen. Let me try and see. So for me, if it doesn't happen, that maybe some kind of maybe the validations are there. So could can happen, right? So let's try and do URL encoding. Now what is URL encoding? Let me share, because every time I am not able to play around with these vulnerabilities, I try and check out where things can go wrong. So if you see, there are URL encodings which are there. So I can change certain characters. I can try it myself. Let's see. I have a // and see what I can do. So I can actually play around with it. This text is converted. And similarly, I can understand what it is called, how it is called. So here, instead of dot dot slash, can I try something else? Can I get to see something else? Can I figure out where things can go wrong? So let me do this. Let me try to create, I crafted this URL here and see if I can find some more information in this. Okay, where if you see it's dot dot slash dot dot, I've converted to this and see if it gives me some more. Wow, I can see some really good information here. Bin, boot, dev, etc. Home, and one of my favorites, etc. In etc, I can find some more information. And if we continue more further, if we go more down, maybe more inside the registries, what exactly I can find? I can actually try and see more information. So I want to get into like anything and everything. If I get the passwords, I'll be the happiest person. Literally, I'm saying that I would love to get into your passwords if that's there, right? So I would love to get to know all of these details. Mm-mm, I have all of them. I am sure that you don't want your information to be here. So let's do one thing. Uh, can it be fixed in code for any developer? Let's see. So this is my code where I have this whole goof that I wanted to exploit. All of the files are here. What am I going to do? First of all, I'm going to use Sneak open source. I'm going to use Sneak. But for that, I need to have an extension. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Sneak, open source, ISE, all of this, I'm going to install. Okay, I have this code installed. So I have this beautiful extension and I can use it in any given point of time. So it's very easy. I had it, I was able to use it. But for you, when you go here, so before I'll tell you something interesting. It didn't ask me much, but for you, it'll ask you a little bit more information. It'll ask you to authenticate with your sneak.io account. Now, what is your sneak.io account? Let's go here and look here, and you can just see here. So for you, you can sign up. For me, it will not ask because before the session, I tried and here it is landing me. Or I need to just log off and it re-authenticate. But for you, it's very simple. Go to the extensions here and in extension, look for Sneak, install it. As soon as you install, it'll ask you to authenticate via sneak.io. It'll take you to the web page. As soon as you authorize, you'll be good to go, like as fast as possible. Now, what we really want to do is we need to trust the workplace, and then let's see and where we are. If you see, it actually asked me to authenticate again because I signed out first. This is what is going to happen with you. Authenticate for CLI. I love working on CLIs. A lot of developers want to work with CLIs, and similarly, this helps us or this enables us to play around with it more. So let me authenticate so that I can run the scans via that. Now, why do I want to do that? Perfect. It's been authenticated. Now let me come here. Perfectly seen. And I can see here. Oh, wow. Sneak is super fast. It has started analyzing my code base already and found so many issues here. Wow. I totally love it. Okay. So let me do this. Here, there are critical vulnerabilities here in handler and where not. Similarly, for every vulnerability, there is an information. Now, we just actually went through the directory traversal attack. Can it be fixed? It was an ST library, which was introduced in 0.2.4. Now, it's fixed in 0.2.5. What we just need to do is we need to update it. We need to update our library. And as soon as we update these libraries from 0.2.4 to 5, we will be able to fix them. We will be able to fix these issues and we will be able to update the ecosystem. So here is the ST file where we had issues. Now let me do one thing. Let me go to my code and search for if I have any ST file here. Let me see. Okay, st dot is the dot js search. Oh, element found. Why? Let me figure out. So once you actually do that, you would be able to fix all of these issues. Let me see. Where is my package? All right. So if you see, there are many issues that are there which we can fix, but there are exploits that I have here, and I can start playing around with it. So there are admin.zip package which we could see, which we need to fix first because this is a critical package that needs to be fixed. And at the same time, as soon as we update, it'll be fixed. Now, let me come back to another issue that can be there. Now, all of these vulnerabilities are related to directory traversal or maybe some other issue that is there in the zip slip folder or file extension. But how about playing around with some other things? For example, mm, cross-site scripting, input validation issue, because there are inputs that being taken. So let me try and say, actually play around in the URL itself. If you see, so actually I played around with it. So I knew that there is a cross-site scripting and it says alert 1 to 1, alert 1. But then if I say by Randy, I'll tell you something interesting about it. So, a few years back, I started doing the pen testing, like a really, really long time ago. So, while I was doing that, I actually shared this with the developers. And what happened next was that the developers started fixing the issues and said, "We have fixed this hack by Wendy." Wow, okay, they fixed it. But then when I tried testing some other things, I was not able to replicate. They said we just actually fixed hacked by Wendy, and that's it. Where did it go? Okay, so you just fix that and you're done with it. Then I realized that they didn't put the right validation in place. So right kind of validation is equally important when we are working with these issues. So very, very important, very, very critical that we fix such issues, or these malicious things will keep happening. Now, I actually want to say that, okay, let's try and type something more around it. Mm, the patch, it didn't work. But then when I put it in the URL, it started working. It started redirecting. So the important thing here is that we need to see where the validations are. So, and validation has to be on the client side and server side. And all inputs needs to be validated. There are visible inputs we start uh, putting the validations but improper. At the same time, what happens is we try maybe in URL it works. Now with this it didn't work, let me try some other thing and if see if it works. So you have to keep trying. And why do I say that? Because not every attacker gets the things in the first go. Trust me, it never happens. That's why we take help from the cheat sheets. It is very, very important. So this didn't work in the here in the comment section, but in URL it worked. So a lot of times what I do is I first start playing around with script and then I show the URL. This time I did the reverse. I'll tell you the reason why. Because I wanted to show that there is a vulnerability that exists. Now I knew it existed, but for the people who didn't know, it's very tough to figure out. But in the code base, we can actually figure out as early as possible because that's where the things start, and that's why everyone talks about shift left. So this parameter, if you see on the screen, I've done certain changes here. I have done the encoding here, and now I'm trying to see if it works. Mm-mm, nothing happened, nothing came. So maybe something else might work here. Let's see. It's like um, a hit and try. If you see, what I did was I tried to play around with the document location. This is one of the vulnerability. This is one of the issue. And when I did that, every time somebody would click, this pop-up will aware. You'll be like, what is this? But if I would like to call up a cookie, which is a session state, and if it sends me that, I would love to get that information. I would love to log in as you. So cross-site scripting, what it is, when an application take input from the user, does not validate, and pass it on to the server doesn't validate and start showing you what it is not supposed to, or give you the server information. So we are using the JavaScript here and trying to break out the logic which is implemented in the back end, and that is blocking up from hacking the application. That's why when we started encoding, it started showing me what I wanted. But here, with everything else, it didn't work. So you have to try it. So let me go ahead and show you some interesting Sneak cheat sheets. So Sneak also have beautiful cheat sheets where you can actually check out those cheat sheets about different ecosystems. Could be around XSS, or maybe around something else. So let me go ahead and show you a link. So this is about cross-site scripting. This is one of the beautiful places in Learn, which talks about what is a cross-site scripting, how much it is affecting the ecosystem, and also it gives us the more detail, how you can exploit it, what are the different vectors, and it does not just say, okay, these things, but then you can also try it yourself. So Sneak Learn has different attack vectors. So once you go to Sneak Learn, there are multiple things that are there. If you see, explain about these different issues that are there. Like, I would love to know about everything, especially for developers. If you're concerned, like how exactly I can go through all of these, so you can try it yourself. It's all hands on. There are click throughs which can make you experience these issues, that how you can try them yourself. So let me give you this sneak.io learn, so you can learn it yourself. Because if I tell you, you might forget tomorrow. Trust me, I can forget it. So I want to try everything myself. I want to experience everything, from application security to CI/CD to everything. I want to try everything. So there are fundamental practices which are there about OWASP top 10. Oh, how can I forget? So we did a beautiful series. My friend Sonia and I did a beautiful series on OWASP top 10 using Sneak Learn. I am sure you can also do the same thing. It's a beautiful one, and and we had like a great love that's being showed on that, and we would want to share with you what we have done so far. So what you just need to do is you need to go to this YouTube channel, and we have created a playlist for that. So on the Sneak YouTube channel, you can go here and go through everything about Big Fix and what not. We share all the friends at Sneak and all the partners whom we discuss all of that. So you can go through it. And beautiful checklist around OWASP top 10 is here. That's one of my favorite checklists, because we actually got so much interaction during these discussions, and we would love to you for you to go through these things. So, all of these discussions that we are doing here, these stranger danger sessions, our motive is not just to go through the presentation. We want you to know about these resources that exist. A lot of times, we spend time on things, or reinvent the wheel. We try and reinvent the wheel, and we didn't know the things existed. For example, when I started doing application security testing, I didn't know there's something called OWASP application security verification standard that exists. And strangely, I started using testing guide, and I created a beautiful checklist on Excel. I went to my boss and said, "Oh, I have created this." And the person said, "Oh, why did you put in efforts in this? There is a beautiful ASVS which is out there." And I'm like, I did not know about that. And that was much more easier for me to go through. Similarly, there are so many amazing resources which Sneak has, which a lot of people don't know, which actually can provide you beautiful things. So here is Sneak Learn. Then you can go through this whole checklist that we shared, the YouTube list that we shared, and you can get to know about not just cross-site scripting, but many other vulnerabilities. All of this you can go through. And similarly, what we can do is we can start fixing these issues. It's like, I am my bulb needs to be illuminated. I want to know about everything. And I'm sure there are tons of resources which you have and you want to share, put it in the chat box. Now, I would love to know about that. Not every, I don't know everything. So I would want to know about it. Now, this cross-site scripting is there in one of the libraries. So, if you remember, we were talking about certain issues which were there as part of our ecosystem. Similarly, this cross-site scripting is a high severity issue in Marg library, which can be fixed in 0.3.6. And I can fix it. And I would be able to not replicate this issue. Why? Because there are validation which have been put in that. Now, the beautiful part is that you can do it from your ecosystem itself. How? You can use your terminal and you can start playing around with it. You can start fixing, you can send the pull request to your GitHub. So you can fix it directly if you have given or authorized your GitHub with the sneak. So you can just straight fix these issues. You can change the version of Marked and you can shut down the server. You can restart the server and the vulnerabilities is fixed. That's what we really want. Now, coming back to our discussion, what more we can do? There are tons of things that can be done. There are tons of issues that are there that needs to be fixed. Let me tell you another interesting aspect is that it is not just like small things. Those small things collaborate and make big issues. One hacker or it's like one person doesn't move the mountain. Similarly, one vulnerability might not be able to move the mountain, but when it's chained, then what can happen? Wonders. An attacker can bring down the applications as well. So what we do not want. So what we want to do is here is fix these issues, understand these issues, and understand how these issues can be fixed. So if you start understanding all of these issues, it'll take days. But first, we need to know it. So I got to know, but now I need to start fixing those issues. So the beautiful way is to just start making the pull request and then start fixing it. So you can play around with your Visual Studio Code itself. You can run, you can debug and whatnot. You can customize things. You can just use it beautifully. And for me, I want to play around with these extensions. I want to know more about them and whatnot. So close all. I and I got information about it. You can check more about this issue in this GitHub pull request. Let me make it here. We're like, why is it so important? Because if we don't fix these issues, we become part of the whole vulnerable ecosystem. All these dependencies that are there that we are talking about, from Mark library to ST to everything, it is very important to fix these issues. And interestingly, when we don't fix it, we are vulnerable. And we need to educate our friends also to fix these issues. So let's start taking steps toward fixing these issues. Now, I'm coming back to this thing and talking about another interesting aspect. Let me come back to my own presentation and talk about it. So, what did we learn here? We learned about the marked issue, which had cross-site scripting, and we actually saw that okay, there are issues and we need to fix. And how did I scan? I just used it and it scanned. But then if you want to scan it, what you need to go through? What do you need to do it? For me, simple, sneak test. But then it's a simple way to start scanning the issues. But remember one thing, there are multiple projects which are part of your sub projects. So you might need to use all projects like hyphen all projects. Here, I just used sneak test because there was one project that was there. Now let me open it. When I sneak test, so sneak is easy to use. It just few seconds to scan. So many vulnerabilities. So what I did was sneak test. It started testing my ecosystem. It tested 565 dependencies. But as part of my database, I only had 400 something. Like, how come there are so many other dependencies? which I didn't know. And on top of it, it found 103 issues, which was 415 vulnerable paths. The first issue was in directory traversal, which we saw. Do you remember? And then there are multiple issues like prototype pollutioning, arbitrary code execution, and whatnot. Regular expression denial of service. Now, all of these issues that I'm talking about, they are part of Sneak Top 10 as well. Now, Sneak Top 10 was released last year. Let me share the link as well, where we analyzed the top list of vulnerabilities in the ecosystems um, that was scanned by the developers. So there's no client issue that is being listed. It's the top issues that we saw. So here is Sneak Top 10, and you can actually check out about each one of them, what it is, how it can be fixed, what are the critical dependencies around it. So if you see, cross-site scripting is not just in one uh, parameter or one dependency, it is there in multiple dependencies. So let's start working towards that. And there are some critical, medium, high vulnerabilities as well, and I can play around with them. If I'm an attacker, I would love to play around. But what I did was I started fixing it as a developer or as a responsible person who wants to disclose vulnerabilities responsibly. So it's important to fix these issues. And here there are so many packages which are vulnerable. Similarly, for you, there might be some packages which might be vulnerable. So very important to get to know them. Here, if I go to package.json, I can see these dependencies. Do you see them? Okay. Now, if I see, okay, there's a MongoDB version, more versions, so many versions. And I told you, okay, you can fix it, you can update those versions. But how do you update those versions? What do you do that? How do you do that? So all of this can be fixed as soon as you change the version here, or download those new dependencies. And let me tell you an interesting bit about Visual Studio Code as well. So there was one person who actually found the vulnerability in the Visual Studio Code. And what happened next is that the person reported it very diligently, because if the person would not have reported it diligently, then maybe somebody might have access to your account or maybe someone else's account, but this person reported it. So if you can go back and see Visual Studio Code issues, there are so many. So why were there? Because we didn't update them. So it's very important to update our own systems as well. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about ST package here. If you see, it's 0.2.4, and there are two vulnerabilities here, right? So let me see what were the problems. What are these problems? Okay, no. I want to go back to ST package. Let me go to my sneak, and what it says. So fix in 0.2.5. Wow. Okay. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and change it to 0.2.5, and let me run the sneak test again and see what I have. Okay, sorry. Okay, and see what it says that it's querying the database. All right, let me come back. Okay, the sneak scan is done. And let me go ahead and first of all, uh, no. See if it's fixed. Scanning for vulnerabilities. I don't want this. Let's see what it comes up with. It should fix it. It should fix it. See, this is my favorite part. Where I want to fix it, where I want to try it, where I want to test it. What happens next? Do you also feel the suspense? I feel it. There are sometimes it becomes, heck, whether I'm vulnerable or not. What are the issues that I see? Now, if you see, the package is not here if it's fixed here. So it is fixed in 0.2.5. Now coming back here to package.json, where is my package.json? See, there were two vulnerabilities which have been fixed and which are not there in the latest version. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to come back to my presentation and we're going to learn a little bit about the advisor. Now, all of these package.json vulnerabilities, marked libraries, all of these things, all of these goofs, these share the information. So you can work and fix on your open source issues, and you can open the fix PR from your um, uh, interestingly Visual Studio Code. And what it happens is it actually sends the pull request, and as soon as you accept, it is fixed. We learned about cross-site scripting today, and let's go back to our icebergs. So here, iceberg also has containers. We see issues in our containers. So apart from our code, native code, open source code, we have containers. We have Docker files, which are problematic. And another interesting bit here is that while we talk about all of these Docker files and container issues, this is a base Docker file. Now, what's wrong with this? They have or vulnerabilities in maybe the software itself, which we don't know, or maybe there are dependencies during the runtime which are vulnerable, which are bad, which we are not using it right. Maybe there's an issue in npm CI itself. So we need to understand that. Or are we looking at something which is related to big image? So very important to understand whether there is a problem in dependency, whether there is a problem in ecosystem, whether there is a problem in the platform itself. So very, very important. And on top of it, all of this can be figured out if we start scanning it. Another thing is all of this can be figured out using the Sneak Advisor, which tells us about different versions, what are the issues. So same with Sneak Advisor and some information which help you in taking a decision on which Docker image will suit your project. Now, there are Docker images best practices which are there, which you can take help from. And what's the last layer is the beautiful one, which is more around infrastructure as a code. So maybe we can talk a little bit about around that. So infrastructure as a code is something which is very, very interesting, which is very, very important. Now, infrastructure as a code vulnerabilities are nothing but just a single file containing the whole ecosystem, right? Misconfiguration can lead to creating a big issue. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start running some scans. So here, I'm going to go to this repo, uh, which has the issues, which we have created as a vulnerable library, which you can take a look at it. So we have created certain vulnerable code scans, which you can refer to. I'm going to put this link in the chat box. And here you go. What I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open this code. So I'm going to close this. Let me close it. And I'm going to download the code there. So where is my Visual Studio Code? Let me go ahead and open it, where I can start playing around with that particular IAC code. Now, why we start concentrating on all of these things? Because we started seeing the environments which are vulnerable from the get-go itself. Like how can some environment be vulnerable from the get-go? Why? Because these environments can lead to big issues. So here is my vulnerable environment where I have this IAC issue. So if you see, there are certain issues, there are certain modules that are there which can be problematic, right? But if you look at this, it has a bit of information about the system, right? But do I know any vulnerability here? Maybe, maybe not. So let's do this sneak test here and see what it does and see what it provides, what information it provides. And here it is an IAC. So my sneak test did not work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this IAC module of sneak, and I'm going to run the test here and see what vulnerability it comes with it. Because this infrastructure as a code is just a single file which actually came up with multiple which can come up with multiple issues. So if you see here, The file contains zero critical, but there are three high, medium, and a low vulnerabilities, right? So I can share this result with many people, with the people in the organizations, which can actually tell me, okay, here there are issues, and it's simple to use, it's simple to run. Now, there are IAM policies which could be an issue, which could create an issue, which gives me those details. So I'm using these code bases. I'm able to play around with it. So what I want to do is I want to know more about it. As soon as you start understanding these issues, what are these? I can fix them as soon as possible. Okay, let me read them. What are these issues? So when I ran the test, the medium issues around IAM require minimum password length. Oh, who keeps the password length which is slow? Let me tell you. So one of the discussions we had a long time ago, and we wanted to come up with an analogy around passwords. So passwords are like toothbrushes. Do you ever share your toothbrush with anyone? I am sure no, I don't share. It's my personal hygiene. So passwords are like toothbrushes. When you don't share your toothbrush, why do you share your password? And if it's small, anyone can get to know. If it does not have a proper length, I can play around with it. So what I need to do is I, I need to fix it. I need to fix those rules which are there. So there are certain security rules which are there, which we can go through. If you see here, there is a rule recommendation which I can play around with it, right? So probably we can start opening it, and how it can be fixed. You can just go to resources, IAM password, and it can be fixed. Okay, follow the link, and I can open these files. Now, interestingly, that is opened here. Let me open it on my system here. Okay. So if you see, your password does not enforce a minimum length. It's a minimum length password, and with a 40, at least 14 characters should be there. And why it is asking? Because there are people out there who want to play around with your passwords, who have rainbow tables. There are a lot of dumps which are available, where if you do not rotate your password, anyone can get into it. The interesting case that I want to talk about here is the colonial pipeline attack, where someone's account password was on the internet. For another account, the person just tried to scrub around different credentials for that person, realized this person works for a government organization, started playing around with the password within the organization, and was able to bypass VPN. And what happened next? Was able to bring down the whole ecosystem, was able to do the ransomware attack on it. Now, I'm not making up any attack, it's there on the internet, you can go through it. So, this can be as critical as possible. While we use these dependencies, we need to secure our own house. Very, very important. But if we don't do it, we will have trouble in securing our house itself. So, let's go ahead and talk, very importantly, the interesting bit which we should talk about before we end the session. So, we love about IAC, we need to fix these issues, but if we don't talk about this, what will happen? We would never be able to understand the whole modern application, which consists of app code, open source libraries, container, IAC, and whatnot. Now, in the end, I would just say that adopt a DevSecOps practice. We need to address the open source vulnerabilities. While open source tools open a great benefit, great number of cost efficiency information, it's very, very significant to use these issues and fix them. Do not let attackers use them. Let's train our developers. And importantly, some beautiful resources which we have as cheat sheets, best practices, sneak learn. We have state of open source security report, which I actually shared with you, like 80 to 90% and whatnot. All of this is there. Now, while we are moving to cloud, let's stay safe in our cloud native journey. Very, very important, or what will happen? We will be in trouble. And here we are almost at the end of the hour. It's like I am almost 4 minutes over. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see you in the next webinar. But stay tuned, keep sharing your feedback, keep connecting with us, keep sharing information about what you learned, what you thought that I should have added more to it. I'm open to feedback. I want to know more about it. I was playing around with it. I would love you to play around with this. Share the information with your friends. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere. Not the Facebook, LinkedIn or Twitter. You can, our DMs are open. You can follow Sneak. You can check out the beautiful Sneak YouTube channel where we have all of these things are getting live stream on Twitch, where we are streaming it as well. So all of these things are there, beautiful resources. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to use the things that we have and start playing around with it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today in this beautiful Big Fix edition. And not to miss out, if you've not registered for the Big Fix, you can still register for the Big Fix, and we still have a week to go before we end this on March 14th. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I was very glad to see you here. Thank you. Thank you so, so much here. And see you all in the next stream. Thank you.